Morning, Eddie.
Good morning, Razor.
Firstly, can we just check on the fitness situation with the squad? Any new problems from the Arsenal game?
A few bumps and bruises, very physical game, very intense, but nothing that's absolutely standing out in my mind at the minute.
You've been taking a lot of questions recently about Alexander Isak for obvious reasons. Is he now in a position to play some part for you, potentially?
Let's get through training today. I'm not clear because I just don't want to put pressure on him. We'll introduce him at the right time. He's getting closer all the time, and he has trained with the team, so we're pleased with his progress. Let's wait and see.
It's obviously been a frustrating time for him. How is he with the situation, the fact that he hasn't come back maybe earlier when possibly he could, and it's been probably 3-4 months since he actually put on a black and white shirt?
Yeah, I think initially he was hugely disappointed. I think there was a feeling of real frustration because he wants to contribute, he wants to show his talents. He's in a much better place now because he's close and he's training, and I think whenever a footballer is back on the grass and amongst his teammates, your view on things is totally different.
FA Cup this weekend then, and with you into the last 8 of another competition, the League Cup, and riding high in the Premier League. How do you balance everything? How do you find room for hopefully an FA Cup run?
Well, yeah, we want that. I'd certainly take that. Not problem, but I'd certainly take the fixtures and the congested games that would bring. I think, yeah, it's going to be down to me this weekend to try and get the balance right of how we prepare this game and what team we pick. We want to win the game. We want to go through. We have another cup game a couple of days later. It's a later kick-off. So there's a lot to think about. And I haven't fully, as I sit here now, made my mind up on what team I will pick. I'm going to assess training today and then make a decision.
The circumstances last year in the third round were very different to the ones that you find yourselves in now, but that was a huge disappointment for you, wasn't it, the Cambridge match, and you'll be determined to avoid that kind of feeling again against a team from a lower division? Yeah,
definitely. I think the interesting thing from that game is we picked a very, very strong team, and it just goes to show that even in these games are so difficult, so people will make assessments on what team you pick, but there's no guarantee to any game. Just by picking a set group of players, you'll win the match. I think the biggest thing for us is how we approach the game, the mentality of the group that I do pick, their motivation levels, their professionalism, their desire. This is going to be a very, very difficult game. Sheffield Wednesday, watched them a lot, and very, very good team, having a great season. So we're under no illusions. It's a difficult task, but made even more difficult if we're not in the right place ourselves.
Lastly, I wanted to ask you about Elliot Anderson, who hasn't started a Premier League match yet. His 2 starts have come in the Cup this season. You do have maybe a shortage of midfield options relatively, especially with John Joe Shelby injured, but the transfer window is open and I'm sure there's clubs who are interested in him. What do you think the short-term future for him holds?
He's here and he's very valued by us. He's had a number of niggles the last couple of months, Elliot, which has prevented him from being involved more. I'd like to say now he's back to his best condition, so he's got a valuable role to play with us between now and the end of the season, and certainly won't be loaning him anywhere.
Okay, thank you. Keith?
Morning, Eddie. How are your midfield the three that have been playing, and I suppose Joe Linton as well, who's dropped back in there at times, how are they coping with the workload at the moment? Because that's the one sort of area where you're quite light, and how do you see them ahead of the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, the physical exertion of our group shouldn't be underestimated. The whole team, the way we play, the players have to give a lot, certainly against Arsenal. The team, again, gave a lot physically. It was a really tough game for us. We had spells in that second half where we didn't have a lot of the ball. So the midfield in particular, I think, epitomised that. Yes, it's an area we don't have great strength and depth at the moment in terms of numbers. Those guys are in a good place, though, I'd say. No issues with any of them. I think they're enjoying playing and getting that rhythm that playing brings. No issues.
And you touched on the Cambridge game just a moment ago. can't believe that was a year ago now. But since then, I mean, that felt like the sort of one low point since you arrived, and it's been an upward trajectory since then. When you think back to how you felt back then compared to now, how much have things changed?
Well, a lot's changed in the terms of the team, I think, and how we think of ourselves. You know, the confidence levels. Our style of play has definitely changed and progressed. I think there's more to come. But I don't know if I think any differently. I think I've been in football long enough to know that the highs and lows that you face, that was a definite low. But it's making sure that you're very, I'll pick my words carefully, not calm because you're hugely disappointed, but see the bigger picture. And the bigger picture at that time was, right, we had another game coming up very quickly and we're in a fight to stay in the league. So I think keeping that perspective and moving on very quickly was important.
All these defensive plaudits, defensive records that the team yourself are getting right now, best defence in the league, 6 clean sheets in a row. You obviously in the past have been lauded for being a front foot coach and playing great attacking football. How proud are you about the way the team are defending right now and these records that you guys have got?
Yeah, I still pride myself on being an attacking. No, we haven't changed. I think naturally your focus can change, as in day to day you have different priorities and objectives and you're preparing the next game, so I think you focus on that game, but your principles of play don't really change, and they haven't for a long time for us. But I think there's definitely been a slight shift in our work in terms of trying to drill the players and make sure that we're defensively resilient. But again, that's not to say that we didn't always do that originally, but maybe just slightly more focus since we arrived here, because I think that was a definite area for improvement. Now the challenge is to hit those levels consistently, and we've done that so far this season. Our defensive record and performances in general have been very good. That will get harder for us. The challenge will become greater. But I back the players we have. Their mentality to defending from the whole team has been superb, and we're certainly going to need that to continue.
The ball was in play in the Arsenal game the other night for I think 54 minutes for the 90. 48 against Leeds the previous weekend, last Saturday. What do you make of the comments by Arsenal's former chairman David Dean, who came out and said that games should be not controlled by the referee but controlled by a stopwatch and perhaps even reduced from 90 minutes due to the amount of time the ball was out of play? What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I didn't see those comments. I think that's quite a radical rule change. I think I'm all for the people that go to watch football matches getting value for money and getting to see the ball in play. I think I'm a big advocate of that, and I would back that and support that, because I think you don't want to see the ball out of play continually. Certainly that wasn't our intention against Arsenal. Look, there's certain times of the game where you have to manage situations. You have to, depending on how the game's going and where the momentum is in the game, you have to be streetwise and smart and find a way to get a positive result for your team. And certainly I think that's been a really good aspect of our play this year. But on the other side of that, I think we've been very proactive and tried to keep the ball in play in the vast majority of our games.
Yeah, and I think against Leeds last week you gave them credit for the way they came and played against you and left with a point. So, you know, I know a lot of Arsenal fans were saying the opposite. They were disappointed by the way things went. Can you understand any club playing in that way?
No, I think we didn't beat Leeds because of ourselves, not because of Leeds. Leeds did what they needed to do, and I think the challenge is always on you as Newcastle manager to find a way to beat any opponent. And I think having that control ourselves is vitally important, and recognising when we don't deliver that, how we can improve. In
terms of the transfer window, Eddie, are you quite comfortable the way things are at the moment? Obviously, no early moves by the club, but are you quite confident things could change?
Things could change. I think we were never going to be in a position where we were doing early business in this window. I've said many times this is a different window to the ones that we've gone through already. So we're in a position where we're taking stock, we're evaluating, as I said, on a day-by-day, week-by-week basis. Let's see what happens as the window unfolds.
Anything imminent at the moment? Thank you.
No problem.
Nisha?
Hi Eddie.
Hi.
Every season we have this debate about how seriously clubs take the FA Cup and cup competitions generally. I just wondered for you as a player and a manager, how important has this competition been for you over the years?
You make me laugh because as a player I didn't get to the latter stages, unfortunately. I scored a couple of goals though, going way back, so I didn't mind a goal in the cup. As a manager, I think the FA Cup's been difficult. I think my time at Bournemouth, we were desperate to try and stay in the Premier League every year. We did want to do well in the cups, but we never quite got the rhythm. We tended to do better in the Carabao Cup, the early season competition. Here, obviously last year happened. We want to try and learn from that and make sure we try and progress this year, but there's no guarantees. That's what makes the FA Cup so special.
You spoke before about having to balance your team selection, with the quarter-final, obviously next week. Is this going to be an opportunity, these next couple of games, to see some players that maybe haven't started, like Alan Saint-Maximin and others? Will they be given opportunities? Yeah,
possibly. As I said, I haven't picked the team for tomorrow yet. I want to see training. I want to see how the lads are physically today. But yeah, we've got a good squad. I think you always, going through my mind, is giving people opportunities to play and stake their own claims to play more regularly in the Premier League. But I've got to get the balance right between making changes and trying to win the game. And we don't want to lose our rhythm and the fundamental principles of our performance. So let's wait and see.
And just finally, you just talked about the transfer window there, assessing things daily, weekly. A couple of weeks ago, you said you weren't quite sure how it was going to look for the club. Is that picture getting clearer on this kind of daily basis as we go through the month?
No, not really. It's. I think we've spent money in the previous two windows. I don't think there's a great financial fair play is impacting what we can do. So I think it goes against financial fair play and our need to improve, and I think they're two different things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Damien?
Eddie, the other night when Mikel Arteta was getting quite animated, you were quite firm on the touchline. You weren't going anywhere. How important is it that you defend your team, stick up for your team, as they do for each other on the pitch?
Absolutely. I think I have to be very strong in certain moments for my team, for the club. Got no problem doing that. I think as long as I don't lose my discipline and control, but certainly I have to stand up for what I believe in certain moments. And I think the referee, I have to give the referee a big compliment against Arsenal. I thought he was very strong when he needed to be at the end of the game under immense pressure. I thought he made the right decisions in those moments. So I've got no issue doing that.
Just something Keith mentioned earlier about the physical demands on your midfielders. The intensity you want your team to play with and some of the managers want your teams to play with put huge demands on those players. How do you manage that? How do you get them to sustain that for a season? Because it must be very difficult.
Well, I think, it's a delicate balance, and that's where your training is so important. So now in between a busy spell of games, making sure we don't fatigue them from our own work is very important, but then they need to be sharp enough when they go into the game to actually execute what you need them to do. So our protocols we use to make sure the players are fresh going into games, that needs to be of the highest level. That's where our facilities are really important. There's a physical cost, but also a mental cost. You need to make sure the players are mentally able to deliver again. So that's where we have to speak to the players regularly and just check they're in the right physical condition to give their all for the team.
Okay, Miles?
Is Martin Dubravka fit and ready to play tomorrow if needs be? He didn't, of course, play too much at Man United.
Yeah, no, he looks fine. He's doing the very brief bits of training we've seen with Martin because he hasn't been back very long. He's done very well. So yeah, he's fine to play.
Where does his return leave your other three, aside from Nick, goalkeepers?
Yeah, well, that's something we'll have to decide as the window unfolds. I think Martin's return, slightly unexpected, gives us probably a top-heavy goalkeeping department in terms of numbers. So let's see what happens with that.
Okay, Craig?
And is your squad deep enough and strong enough to compete on three fronts?
I think without any injuries, yes. With injuries, probably not. So we have the two injuries at the moment to John Joe and Matt Targett, which was a huge blow for us, to take two quality players out of a squad that's not hugely deep in terms of numbers. That's why the transfer talk is interesting from our perspective, because I think it will be injury related. So it's a difficult one to answer, really, Craig. I'd say with the full group, yes, I think we are strong enough, and I do think I have quality in every position. But you lose a few players, and suddenly that changes.
To that end, could progression in the next two matches dictate what you do transfer-wise?
I think what will dictate what we do transfer-wise will be the injury list, not so much the games. We're very keen to progress. We want the extra games. But as I say, the injury situation will be the deciding factor, I think.
Just the last one. Did Mikel Arteta apologise, or was there any subsequent conversation before you left the Emirates?
No, there was no need to apologise. It's two passionate people caring about their football club, so that's all part of the game.
Ian?
Morning, Eddie. During your Bournemouth days, there was a perception that your strengths didn't lie in defensively, in setting up a defensive team. The fact that Newcastle's record was so impressive this season, do you feel vindicated? Did you feel annoyed back then? Can you talk about your emotions about that?
No, because the defensive record of the team wasn't what we wanted it to be. We prided ourselves on trying to play attacking football. We rose through the leagues playing that way. We went then into the Premier League and we didn't want to change. So with that came a cost. As in, we were attacking, we were front foot, we wanted to entertain. It meant we scored goals, but it also meant we conceded goals. The better teams we came up against exploited that to a degree. But we didn't want to change because it had brought us success, and we managed to stay in the Premier League for a long period of time. So I don't think I could defend our defensive record at the time, but the sort of defence of it was that we were successful as a team, playing very entertaining football. So here we have improved. I think that's all down to the players. That's all down to their performances on a regular basis. And you look back to the Arsenal game, there was a team mentality out on that pitch not to concede. It wasn't individuals. It wasn't just down to any group of people, but other than the team, and that pleased me no end.
As a coach, which is the tougher challenge, coming in and improving a side that leaks goals regularly, making them tighter, or coming in and improving the firepower of a side that doesn't score goals?
I think both are very difficult in their own right. I don't think there's one that's easier than the other. I think coaching is part of it for me. So coaching is a really powerful tool in trying to improve players and get your structures right, and that comes down to hours on the training ground. And then ultimately I think players make the biggest difference. And that's why I've been so pleased with the group and how they've responded to everything we've asked them to do.
Just one last one on that. Out of the back five, 4 of them have come in the past year. The survivors, Shah, who's arguably your man of the match at the Emirates. How important a figure is he? And he seemed quite a disconsolate figure maybe before you came in. How much improvement have you seen him?
Yeah, I've always rated Fabian. I've always really liked his qualities. He's very, very good technically. I think that goes without saying. His vision and his composure on the ball is second to none. But I think what's really impressed me has been his defensive mindset and how he's become an integral part of our back line. I think he reads the game very well. He's very diligent in his defending, and he continues to improve, so I'm really pleased with Fab.
Scott?
Eddie, I was just going to ask about Jamal Lewis, because obviously we've talked about Matt not being here and potentially being short, but obviously you do have Jamal who came in, with high hopes and everything, and you would all have quite gone through injuries, various different reasons. I mean, where do you feel he's at in terms of his career and everything, and what does he have to do to take himself to the next level here?
He's in a good place. So Jamal, when I first came in, as you say, had injury problems. So he had a problem with his pelvis that he went away and got sorted out. And that was pivotal because he wasn't feeling himself in training and in games. He felt he couldn't execute physically what he wanted to do. He's an incredible athlete, and now we're seeing that in training because he's feeling a lot more himself. So he's trained very well. I think he's become accustomed to our principles of play. He's done a lot of work behind the scenes. And yeah, I back him to produce some very good performances for us now if given an opportunity. There's never been a doubt for me on the quality of the player. Obviously, competition for places has been very high with Matt, Dan doing so well in the team. So, but he's a player that we really like.
Is it a difficult one for you? Because in some ways he'd be a logical candidate to go out and play in the second half of the season, because there's an argument that he needs to play football really, but it's not. You're not really in a situation where you let him do that, are you?
No, it's a very good comment, because we have so many games ahead of us, a long season to come. Dan Burn, probably by his own admission, probably is a centre half would be his favoured position, but he's doing really well at left back for us, which leaves us only Jamal as a recognised left back. Paul Dummett's coming back from injury. Matt Targett's injured, so there's no way I'd be letting Jamal out at this current moment. But you're probably right. For his own career development, he would now be in a position where he'd say, I want to play regularly. And you get these situations a lot with players, and there's never one solution that fits for everyone. Obviously, we have the team needs, and Jamal has his needs. But I think fundamental to it is we like him as a player, and we want his career to develop, and hopefully he can do and fulfil everything he wants here.
Okay, Martin?
Sorry, going back to Keith's point there, Eddie. You said David Dean's idea was radical. Is there anything you would like to see change in terms of keeping the game flowing? Bear in mind the World Cup had like 10 minutes of injury time at the end of the half. Is there anything that you would like to see alter?
Off the top of my head, no. I'm not a big fan of the huge injury times at the end of games. I think players have sort of roughly a 90-minute target in their head, and then you can add all sorts of silly numbers on it. I'm not sure on that. I do think it's up to referees to control the speed of games better, and to maybe, for obvious time wasting, to book players. I think it's the only way to speed it up.
And moving on to the FA Cup, Bob Moncur was on the radio this morning, and he's kind of carried that for 54 years now. Did you get a surprise when you came here about the club's history, and how do you change that, and how great is your desire to change that?
I've said one of my big motivations here, and I know it's the same for the players, is to create our own history. We'd love, in 50, 100 years, people to be talking about this team and things that we've done. I think that's a huge motivator, always has been for me. You're only in this moment for a short time at any football club. Time goes so quickly, so you want to maximise that and try and leave a positive mark, obviously, on the football club in any way that we can.
Okay, Kieran?
Hi, Eddie. Pretty straightforward question in a way. How have you turned Newcastle into a more streetwise outfit? There were times maybe where they couldn't see out a game a year ago. How have you gone about that process of making it a bit smarter in certain ways?
I think constantly evaluating our performances and what we're doing, and just trying to find little things that can help us. I also think, allied to that, is the experience of the players that we brought in. I don't think you can underestimate. I think when you look at a lot of the players we brought in last January, they had a lot of experience behind them, a lot of games behind them, and that know-how, whether that be Kieran in England, international experience, and Dan Burn had a long career and lots of different leagues, that can only make you more streetwise itself just by bringing that experience to the group. I think now we've got a nice mix of youth and experience, and I think with that combination and trying just to add little bits every game of how we can manage situations better has helped us.
You've gone to obviously Arsenal, Spurs, Liverpool, ruffled a few feathers on and off the pitch. Do you get a sense of a change of perception of how Newcastle are viewed now?
We don't. I think I've said before, we're not here to be popular and to get other teams to like us. We're here to compete. And to compete, you have to give everything to try and get a positive result. I've got no issues saying that. That's our job, and that's what we're going to try and continue to do.
Lee?
Eddie, historically, Newcastle have fielded wicked teams and gone out. Have you looked at that, or do you basically just toss history aside and do your own thing?
I'm not sure you toss history aside. I think that there's always an analysis of the opponent's strengths, your strengths, and we just have to try and find a way to win. You know, the early rounds of the Carabao Cup weren't easy for us. Tranmere game was very, very difficult. We managed to find a way to get through. These games are not easy. I can tell everyone connected with the club this is going to be a tough game. The atmosphere, the stadium, their league form. So if we underestimate them in any way, I think that's probably where the problems arise. We won't fully respect them, and Darren has done an incredible job. So firstly, if we get our mindset right, I back the quality of the players regardless of whatever team I pick, because we're picking good players. But yeah, then we need to play the game and try and find a way through.
And you mentioned Sheffield's sort of quality. They've got a lot of experience. They're probably one of the most experienced teams in that division. They'll be looking at it as possibly one last chance to stick one on one of the bigger teams.
Yeah, I mean, they're having an outstanding season. They play a really nice style of football as well. They've got an ability to mix up their game, so they have good footballers, a really good style, but they have physical players as well. So I think Darren's done an excellent job. Can't compliment him enough, and his form over 2022 has been very strong. So for a long period of time now, they've won football games. And having that momentum, as we know, is a powerful thing. So, yeah, our players will be prepared for everything they're going to face. And then we need to, as I say, our quality needs to show.
Does Jamal Lascelles get a chance in this game? He must have a lot of praise for his patience. He's admitted he can't get in the team because he's doing so well, but he must have a lot of time for that level of patience.
His professionalism strikes me. Every time I see Jamal around the training ground, on the training pitch, he's been first class. He's waiting, he's ready, he's worked incredibly hard. And yeah, I back him if given an opportunity to play very well.
And just finally, you put 2 subs on in the last stages of the game, 2 attacking substitutions. You were still trying to win the game at Arsenal rather than settling for the point.
Well, we had at Arsenal a very good attacking bench, you know, with top quality players. So it was a case of trying to, find a way to get them on the pitch while not losing our defensive solidity, and that's always a difficult thing because in that moment of the game we weren't necessarily the dominant team with the ball. But yeah, we wanted to try and find a way to win. I think we had a number of set plays late in the game that you're just hoping something dropped for us. It didn't, and we had to accept the draw.
Okay, Jordan.
Karen called around in the UK this week. I'm just wondering if you've had a chance to speak with him. Have you seen him, and what's the latest on him finding a loan club? Yeah,
I've just bumped into him in the corridor this morning, so I had a nice little chat. And no, he's good. Yeah, and I saw him before the Arsenal game. He came to the game to watch the team. Again, we had a little chat just before the match. Our plan is still to loan him out. We're identifying clubs and trying to find the right home for him, somewhere where we feel he'll play and be given an opportunity to develop his game further. But he's got a great attitude, a real smile that hits you when you meet him. So really bright lad, and hopefully he'll have a good loan.
Just how important is that first loan to him and the club itself, because he arrives with obviously a lot of potential. He just came on the back of the World Cup as well. Yeah,
I think it's always important. You know, players go on loan for lots of different reasons. His would be to gain experience, to learn a lot about British football. We really like him. We want him to find a home where coaches will develop him and improve him. And he's still so young. He's got lots of areas of his game that need work, naturally. But that experience hopefully will benefit him and us for the long term, as you say.
And just one as well, Ryan Fraser, his situation, he hasn't been I think he's been the match day squad once since the World Cup break. What's his situation at the moment?
Ryan is training, trying to win his place back into the squad.
Yeah, is that what it is? Obviously you've got lots of options in the right areas. Is he relishing that challenge to try and get back in the team? Yeah,
he's training very well. Ryan's working hard. We have competition for places. We don't have a deep squad in terms of numbers, but I think the quality we have is very high.
Okay, any more?
Eddie, can I just ask one more on Alex Isak? I know you spoke about him a little bit at the start. How excited are you as manager to have him back at your disposal, whether it's this weekend or in the future?
Yeah, if and when we do get Alex back, it will be a huge lift. It will be, I know it's a cliche, but like a new signing for us. Massive player, huge ability. So we're very keen to get him back on the pitch.